Gone Girl just got real, but in a different way. The point is that you should never underestimate an average John Doe or Jane Doe, because you never know when your neighbor might become so violent and desperate that even the police forces of two countries encounter multiple dead ends, leaving them feeling helpless and frustrated in their attempts to catch that person. Exactly. That's what happened to today's case, the murder of Moriah Wilson. The only good part about the case was that it was not hard to find who killed her, but the authorities never expected what they had coming after that. While you listen to this story, you will feel both terrified by how far a person can go, and also you might feel impressed by how extraordinary things an ordinary person can do. So, save your chills as we are going to dive deeper into the case and how it led to the manhunt. Moriah Mo Wilson was a talented cyclist and a Dartmouth engineering graduate who tragically lost her life at just 25. She was born May 18, 1996 in Littleton, New Hampshire, but she spent her childhood in Kirby, Vermont. Then she went to Burke Mountain Academy to complete her grads in 2014 and received a Bachelor of Engineering degree from Dartmouth College in 2019. That time, Moriah had gained attention in the cycling community by appearing on The Pre-Ride Show, a popular program. Although she was new to professional cycling, Moriah had a strong background in sports, influenced by her family's athletic achievements. Growing up near Kingdom Trails in northern Vermont, Moriah developed a love for outdoor sports. Initially, she had a lot of interest in skiing. She attended Burke Mountain Academy, a well-known school for training top skiers, with hopes of joining the U.S. ski team. However, repeated knee injuries ended her skiing dreams. To recover and build strength, she turned to cycling. After earning her engineering degree at Dartmouth, she aimed to go professional in cycling. She later moved to San Francisco to focus on her cycling career as well. On May 10, 2022, just before her 26th birthday, she arrived in Austin, Texas, for the Gravel Locos bike race. There she was staying with a close friend. However, on the next day, May 11, 2022, something happened that ended all the dreams of her. Her friend returned home to a shocking scene. Moriah was found shot multiple times on the bathroom floor. Signs suggested she had tried to escape. Austin police officers Mark McLeod and Jonathan Riley led the investigation into Moriah's murder. They found proof that Moriah was shot while the attacker stood over her. While searching nearby, they discovered Moriah's expensive racing bike hidden in some bushes. At first, they thought a burglary might be the reason for the attack, but there was no sign of forced entry in the house. Naturally, it's not a case of burglary. The investigation soon turned to Colin Strickland, a professional bike racer who had dropped Moriah off just before she was killed. Colin was known in the gravel racing community and had briefly dated Moriah about 6 months before. That time, he was taking a break from his ex-girlfriend, Kaitlyn Armstrong. The day after Moriah's murder, police went to Colin's home to ask him questions. He was helpful and talked about their last day together, which included swimming and eating at a restaurant. And this was all on the CCTV cameras, too. The way they spent that day made investigators wonder if it was more like a date, making them more interested in Colin. But suddenly, a crucial piece of evidence came from a neighbor's security camera. It showed a black SUV with a bike rack near the crime scene, right after Moriah was dropped off. Shockingly, investigators also found a similar vehicle parked at Colin's house, and when they checked the license plate, it was registered to someone surprising: Colin's ex-girlfriend, Kaitlyn Armstrong. Kaitlyn is a finance professional who also enjoys yoga and cycling. She had a serious relationship with Colin, including joint investments in property and business. However, things became complicated in late 2021 when they broke up. During this time, Colin briefly dated Moriah, which raised some tension. Moriah even mentioned feeling confused about their relationship in texts with Colin. As the investigation into Moriah Wilson's tragic death continued, authorities were examining all these relationship dynamics and evidence to figure out what happened. Strickland, who had a troubled relationship with Kaitlyn, mentioned that she was jealous. For that reason, he even saved Moriah's number under a different name. After spending time with Moriah, he texted Kaitlyn, where he claimed he was running an errand and that his phone had died. Later, it turned out this wasn't true, complicating his story about that night. It was suspected that on the night of the murder, Kaitlyn Armstrong was also involved. Her phone was disconnected from the network. Investigators thought she had turned it off or put it in airplane mode deliberately. But why, there was no answer. However, due to all these suspicions, the police quickly arrested Kaitlyn for an unpaid Botox bill. During the police interrogation, Kaitlyn seemed indifferent and just wanted to leave when asked about her activities the day before. This was unusual for someone who claimed to be innocent. Things changed when investigators noticed a mistake in her birth date on the arrest warrant, which made it invalid. Because of this error, the police couldn't keep her in custody and had to let her go due to a lack of evidence linking her to the crime. That time, the police didn't realize that the case was about to take a more twisted turn. 2 days after the interview, a friend of Kaitlyn's suddenly contacted the police, saying Kaitlyn was upset about a relationship involving someone named Strickland and had even mentioned wanting to kill Moriah. This tip gave investigators a crucial lead. They quickly issued another arrest warrant for Kaitlyn, this time with the right date of birth. But when they went to pick her up, she had disappeared. The search for Kaitlyn was taken over by the U.S. Marshals Service. The Lone Star Fugitive Task Force started their investigation by looking into Kaitlyn's connections, including friends and family. Investigators thought she might have gone to stay with her sister, Christine, in upstate New York. And they were right. One of the deputy marshals found Christine, who confirmed Kaitlyn had visited her. But there also, the police didn't find Kaitlyn. Rather, she had told her sister she planned to return to Austin. Later, Kaitlyn told Christine she changed her mind and would drive back instead. This raised suspicions with investigators, so they checked for any flights from Newark Airport. Surprisingly, they found no reservations in Kaitlyn's name, and there was no evidence that her passport had been used. This made the search even harder and left investigators questioning her true intentions and activities after the murder. But Kaitlyn actually was playing a harder cat-and-mouse chase in a complicated way than the police imagined. She had fled the U.S. using her sister's passport. Authorities found that a Kaitlyn Armstrong had taken a one-way flight from Newark International Airport to Costa Rica. Christine told the marshals she had no idea where her passport was and insisted she hadn't given Kaitlyn permission to use it. Thankfully, no charges were filed against her. Once in Costa Rica, Kaitlyn didn't stay long in San Jose and managed to escape, getting a big head start on the U.S. Marshals. They teamed up with Costa Rican authorities and the U.S. State Department officials to locate her before she vanished completely. The only challenge was, there were many hostels throughout Costa Rica, and they received tips that, using that trick, Kaitlyn was staying at various hostels. So it was quite hard to figure out her exact location. While they couldn't share all their methods publicly, they managed to get the phone number of an American businessman who might have been in contact with her. Since time was running out, the marshals decided to call him directly. Initially, the businessman was defensive, thinking it was a telemarketing call, and hung up. After several tries, he finally agreed to talk. When he saw a photo of Kaitlyn, he recognized her immediately and mentioned she had changed her appearance. She cut her hair and dyed it brown. Most importantly, she had a new name by then, Heidi Beth. The businessman also said he had seen Kaitlyn at a yoga studio in Jaco, a popular tourist area known for its nightlife and beautiful beaches. This was their first solid lead. So the authorities quickly went to Jaco, checked the area, and reviewed hours of surveillance footage. But sadly, they couldn't find a single thread that can link to Kaitlyn. After their unsuccessful search in Jaco, they got another tip that led them to Santa Teresa, another beautiful beach town along the Pacific coast. They heard Kaitlyn might be hiding in a small village nearby. So they took a ferry and drove through the mountains to reach the remote town. However, they faced a major issue here. It was hard to find Kaitlyn among many women who looked similar to her. One marshal pointed out that they had been warned about this challenge, especially with many foreign tourists in Santa Teresa. But to increase their chances of finding her, the marshals sent in a female operative to join some local yoga classes, hoping she might spot Armstrong. This operative attended 3 different classes and started building connections with the locals. The police began receiving tips from these contacts, who reported sightings of Kaitlyn lookalikes at various restaurants and other places around town. But it was hard to tell if any of them were Kaitlyn or they were just looking for a needle in the haystack. Some locals sent photos, convinced they had seen her. It became clear that Kaitlyn was managing to hide in plain sight, using different aliases like Beth and Ari, like some professional spies do in the movies. That's why, despite the promising leads, the marshals were still struggling to pin down her exact whereabouts. One example was like this. Greg Haber, the owner of Cook's Smokehouse and Bar in Santa Teresa, met a woman named Ari. She introduced herself as a yoga teacher and seemed to be settling down in the area. One evening, while walking his dog on the beach, he noticed she had a bandage on her face. When he asked about it, she casually mentioned that a surfboard had hit her. This was a common thing for that beach, and this small detail about her injury would later make the search for her even more complicated. So, to get creative, the U.S. Marshals posted an ad on a local Facebook page, pretending to be a hostel looking for a yoga instructor. Almost a week passed by, and no responses came. They were starting to lose hope. Just when they were about to give up, someone replied, claiming to be a yoga instructor who wanted to meet at a specific hostel. This unexpected lead gave them new motivation. Deputy marshals quickly returned to Santa Teresa, teaming up with the tourism police to continue their search for Armstrong. Their attention turned to a hostel called Don John's, where the responding yoga instructor was thought to be staying. You see, what started as a routine investigation turned into a large international manhunt centered around this ordinary-looking hostel. To keep the situation low-key and not alert the suspect, one deputy marshal decided to go in alone as a tourist. Inside the hostel, he spotted two people sitting at a table, one of whom looked a lot like Kaitlyn Armstrong. To confirm her identity without raising suspicion, he started a conversation in Spanish. Naturally, she had to pull out her phone to use Google Translate, which she opened using the face unlock feature. This gave the deputy marshal a chance to get a closer look at her face. As he moved in, he noticed the bandage on her nose and what looked like swollen lips. Then he recognized her eyes from the photos they had. This was definitely Kaitlyn Armstrong. Once outside, the marshal quickly informed his team, saying, "That's her. She's in there." The local police acted swiftly, and finally, after a long manhunt, they made the arrest. During the investigation, the marshals uncovered why Armstrong had been so hard to track down. She had recently had plastic surgery. They found a receipt for the procedure at a local hospital in Santa Teresa, and a side-by-side comparison of her old and new photos showed that she had dramatically changed the shape of her nose. One of the female operatives on the marshals' team, who had even attended yoga classes in the hopes of spotting Armstrong, later confessed that the changes in her appearance could have easily fooled her. In the end, Kaitlyn's master plan to avoid being caught almost succeeded, but she was returned to Texas where she faced charges and went to jail. Just weeks before her trial for the murder of Moriah Wilson, she tried to escape during a doctor's appointment, but again deputies caught her quickly. Her actions nearly confirmed that she was guilty. Kaitlyn's trial began on November 1, 2023. The prosecution opened with powerful opening statements that framed the case against Kaitlyn Armstrong, who murdered talented cyclist Moriah Wilson. Prosecution, led by Ricky Jones, highlighted Wilson's impressive athletic background from being a college skier-turned-cyclist in Austin, Texas, to make appearances for the series. He also described the final moments of Wilson's life, who at 9:15 p.m. on May 11, 2022, was making her final movement in a scream of terror. Her scream was captured from nearby surveillance cameras. Jones also described the complicated love life, saying Armstrong and Strickland had been together romantically since 2019, then had a business partnership strictly 2021. Their troubled relationship included periods of cheating on each other, where both had dated other people. And finally, when Colin started dating Moriah, the tragedy struck out of jealousy and competition. Kaitlyn tried to make sure to commit a perfect crime. But she made a big mistake by leaving her DNA on the bike, which was crucial evidence linking her to the crime. And that's the only thing that led suspicion to her. On the contrary, the head of the defense, Puryear, believed that no clear evidence was ever presented that could prove Armstrong to be guilty of the crime. He argued that all the evidence produced was circumstantial, nothing solid to frame Kaitlyn. According to him, Kaitlyn could have been crazy, but not that she was guilty of the murder of Moriah Wilson. And her flight was due to panic and fear from the police. As per defense, it might be Colin Strickland who was the real killer. The presiding judge overruled such theories. During the trial proper, more than 40 witnesses testified on various facets of the case. Among them was Kaitlyn Cash, who is a friend of Wilson. She clearly narrated the intense moments that ensued after finding Wilson shot and unconscious in her apartment. In her words, "I'll never forget that moment in the bathroom, watching that sink turn red and wanting to put it back on my hands because it was the only thing I had left of her." And not only her, another old friend, Nicole Mertz, also testified that Armstrong once said of killing Wilson another time, which added further motives in the murder. The testimony makes one believe that Armstrong had motives in the killing of Wilson. The testimony of Colin Strickland was very crucial because it brings a clearer understanding of the relationship he had maintained with both of them. He described his bond with Armstrong as a riddle, as he admitted that such a very friendly friendship bond was maintained with Wilson. Strickland's behavior in court showed that he feels very uncomfortable dealing with his mixed loyalties. In addition to all these, proofs to the case presented during the trial included Armstrong's digital footprint. The forensic evidence extracted from her cell phone revealed back-to-back searches she had made and stalked where Wilson went in the days that led up to the murder. All these singled out Armstrong into an individual who had questionable state of mind and intention. On its part, the prosecution once again pursued Armstrong's car so as to clarify her situation. The key would be navigating the GPS records of the vehicle to show where she was on that fateful day, and it clearly indicated that she was present in a calculated manner near the area of homicide. As a result, Armstrong was finally found guilty of first-degree murder and handed a hefty 90-year prison sentence. With that, she would also have to pay $10,000 as fine, and she'll be eligible for parole only after 30 years. During the trial, Moriah was portrayed as a talented young woman, with dreams of being an engineer and a love for sports, ultimately becoming an innocent victim in a tragic love triangle, fueled by simply romantic jealousy. While love triangles are quite a common thing in the modern era, a lot of times, some desperate people go any length to get what they want and commit this kind of heinous act. What do you think about these moves? Drop your thoughts in the comment below. And not only the exes, many times, people become victims of their own lovers or spouses as well. If you don't believe it, just see what happened in this real-life gruesome case. So, in recent times, stay alert and vigilant, even with your partners. And if you like this video, don't shy away from giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Thank you.